Okay, hi folks. So I'm going to go through a tutorial of how to build in Unreal 5, and I'm going to start with the first person template. I've already gone ahead and loaded it up to save you the trouble. And my view here is that I have my place actors on the left-hand side. And if you don't have that, you can go to Window, Place Actors, and that should pop up. I also have my outliner and my details over here. Those are also showing up as outliner and details 1. And then I've also turned on the content browser 1. So those are all of the windows that I have around my screen. And I might reference some of these as we move through this. So first thing, I'm going to clear out a lot of this inventory. And these folders are really handy for organizing things. But if I select a folder and delete it, everything that's in the folder just gets unfolderized and dumped into the main scene. So what I have found to be easier is to delete the contents of my folders, in this case, and then to delete the folders themselves. I'm keeping lighting. In Playground, the first cube is the base, the other cubes are the walls, and then the simulated cubes, I'm deleting all of them, just leaving one in case we want to use it later. Gonna leave that playground and that simulated cube for now. And I'm gonna just close all of those folders so we have a little bit of space. I'm also going to change my view just a little bit. And then over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to go under geometry. Now there's one thing that I did in class that I'll just do here again. It's really not needed, but it's a sort of added perk. When you press play, you start off showing your hands. And then when you pick up the gun, it goes into your hands. Now, if I wanted to, I could go to first person, double click that. I can go into blueprints, and then there's something called a blueprint first person character. If I open that up, and it might take a little second here, but I just double clicked it. It's taking longer than expected, but it's working. There we go. Okay, this is all of the blueprints, all of the code that has the character working. This has a viewport where I can see the actual meshes, the actual objects, and then it has something called the event graph, which is where all the blueprint script is. I'm going to go under viewport. I'm going to go to first person mesh, and you can see that this is just a camera with arms, and then there's a capsule here, and that capsule is what's used for collisions and understanding your height. And those arms are the thing that is animated and that you can see through your camera. So I'm going to go over here to the right under details. I have first person mesh selected, and I'm going to say rendering, and I can say hidden in game true, and that would hide the arms. The other thing that I can do is owner no see, which means the person in this camera is not going to be able to see it. And then I can hit compile and save. And then I can close this window. And now when I press play, the hands have disappeared. I can still pick up objects, but I just don't see the hands. And if you don't want to have the rifle, you can just remove the rifle from the game. Okay. So with that out of the way, I am going to go over to this tab called Geometry. Now, we talked in class a little bit about BSPs and brushes and how these are used. I'm not going to repeat that here. I'm just going to go through the motions of why this is important. I'm going to drag the box in, and then I like to put things with a 0, 0, 0. And if I scroll down a little bit, there's brush settings, and I'm not changing the scale. If I change the scale, things look really bad in terms of the texture. I'm going to change the brush settings. So I'm going to make this 500 by 500 by 20, and that'll be a good size floor. While I'm doing this, I don't need to have that floor here anymore. I was just using it for a little bit of reference. And I'm going to hold down my Alt key or the Option key on a Mac and I'm going to slide this over to the side to make that copy. I'm then going to hold Shift, or actually I'm going to hold Control to select multiple things. On the Mac, that should be Command, and then I'm going to use the Alt key again, and I'm going to duplicate that. So I now have 4 pieces of floor. This is good for applying different materials and breaking up that surface a little bit. Now what I could do for creating walls is I could just copy this and then hit E in order to rotate and turn this into a wall. But instead of doing that, I'm actually just going to change these dimensions so that we have a nice size wall that keeps its original orientation. Now, if I want to ground this on an object below it, no matter where it is, I can hit the End key, which is a little bit off on the right. It's usually not on laptops. It's usually on full keyboards, and it's the Insert, Delete, Home, End, Page Up, Page Down. Okay, I'm going to move that into place. Move that over here. I'll select this other one so that I've got 2 selected. I'll hit Alt and I'll copy these 2 up. So now I have 4 walls, and then I'll hit Control and Control to select all 4, and then I'll hold Alt to make another copy and move that over to this side. There we go. Okay, so I now have all the walls that I need for the sides. Let's create another wall and put it on the back. I'm going to go ahead and hold down my Alt key and slide this over. And then I'm going to make that same change here. So instead of 500 in this direction, it'll be 20 in this direction. And then instead of being 500 in this direction, because I've got these walls here, it's going to be 480 because I'm going to subtract the thickness of that wall that's going to be right there. It also looks like I didn't quite perfectly position this, so I'm going to need to move that over. Yep, my walls were overlapping just a little bit. I'm going to have to fix that there. Looks like this wall needs to move over just a touch more. And then these 2 are going to need to also scoot over just a tiny bit. There we go. Okay. Now I can go ahead and say Alt, copy this one, and copy that one. Okay. So I've got my walls set up. I'm leaving this one blank because I want to show you another way to operate with this. So right now I'm in geometry and I'm in place actors, but up here above that, there's a thing called select mode, and I can change that to brush editing. Whatever I have selected will show blue, and then I can select a piece of that object that I have selected. So if I select this object and then click that face again, I'll be selecting that face, and I can move, and I'm not holding any keys, I'm just literally moving it. And that is essentially extruding that face. And I need to make sure I'm getting it right out to the right spot. There we go. Okay, and that's looking good. Okay, now I'm going to make a ceiling. So I'm going to select this one. Oh, I'm still in brush editing mode. Let me go back. Let's go to select. I'm going to select this one, and this one, and I'm going to hold my Alt key and I'm going to drag it up so that they're on top of the other walls. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to go back into that brush editing. I'm going to grab that top face, and I'm just going to pull it up so that everything is lining up and it's all looking good. Okay, there we go. I've got my environment sort of mocked out. It's looking a little dark in here. In class, we talked about how Unreal has the ocular adaptation of like humans do. So if you move to a space that's dark, your eyes will adjust. And I can hold down the L key and click in here to add a light so that I have a little bit of a better idea of what's happening in here. Now the other thing that I can do, let's go back to select, is I can subtract brushes from other brushes. So if I take this brush and I copy it and then I make an edit to its size. So let's keep it at 20, but let's do 150 and 250. Now it's a little bit more like door size. I'll hit end to bring that down to the ground, and then I'll slide that over and line it up with the wall. Over here, just under the brush settings, I can change that to subtractive, and it is now cutting a hole through my wall. Now, it would be good practice for me to title these things. So calling this door. It might actually even be an even better idea for me to select all those things that I just had and group them. And I'm making an office building. And then I could go through and I could title this wall, etc., etc., etc. I'm trying to move through this a little bit quickly and just cover what's needed, but I want to underscore how important successful object project management is. Let's add another piece out here so that when I'm walking out that door, I'm not falling to my doom. And then let's do the same thing over here, but a little bit different. I'm going to select two things. I'm going to make copies of both of those. And then I'm going to change the dimensions of this to 90, 20, 140. I'm also going to make these subtractive. And in this case, I'm doing it before I put them in the wall. And now as I slide them in, you can see that they're taking those cuts out. So this is a nice thing. It's essentially by copying those walls and then rescaling them, it's around its own center. So when I put them back, it's in the center of those walls. All right. Let's also do a skylight. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to sort of zoom up top here. And I'm going to hit Alt to pull this up. And then I'm going to change the size of this one as well. Let's do 300 by 200. Let's change it to subtractive. And then drop that right in there. And there we have it. Now, while I'm doing this, we also want to add materials. So hopefully you have the starter content installed. If you don't, it might be a good idea to use a project template that has the starter content clicked on. That's what I'm recommending for starting out on all your levels. And if you go under materials, there are a whole bunch of materials that we can utilize here. And I'm going to find poured concrete floor. And I'm just going to drop that on there. And then I'm going to find a nice wood floor. Drop that on the other side. Actually, I don't like that at all. Let's do this one. Oh, I like polished. And then there should be a basic wall. That's supposed to just kind of look like sheetrock. Yep, wrong one. And drop those in there. And you can see that it's being applied by surface. So that's actually pretty handy if I want to have things work a little bit differently. If I want to have different materials on different faces of a wall, this would be pretty handy. There we go. Drop that up there. Okay, I'm not worrying about the edges too much right now. I'm going to come back and probably do that a little bit later. But let's go ahead and add something else out here. There we go. All right. Now in this starter content, if I go back to starter content, there's also architecture and props. And in props, we actually have a door frame. So I'm going to drag that onto the scene. And it looks like our door frame doesn't quite fit. It's a little too small. So if I go and press play, I fall to my doom because I haven't moved the player start. Here's that player start. Slide it over here, slide it back over here. Okay, so that's where my player is starting. I don't think I'm gonna need this gun, but I'll just put it out over here just in case. And our cube looks like it's in good shape. Let's try pressing play again. I don't fall to my doom anymore. And now I can try and go through that door, and okay, it's a good thing I made our door a little bit bigger than their door because it looks like it doesn't quite fit. So I can go ahead and scale this. There we go. It's about right. 1.5 would work. I think I have a little bit of play here. I could probably do one. Oops, I deleted it. Do 1.4 and 1.24. Can I make that a little smaller? Nope, not quite. 1.4. Okay, that's looking good. And now if I press play, let's make sure I can get through that doorway. I can get through that doorway. Fantastic. And then we can do the same thing for these windows. So there is a window frame. And you can see wherever I'm dropping the object, it's going to try and put the center point of that object on the surface I'm dropping it on. Go ahead and rotate this. Move this over. Hold Alt. Drag this over and put one over there. These are looking like they're a little far out. There we go. Showing on both sides of the wall. Nice. Oh, look at that. Bad size. That is my player start. Let's close lighting. Let's close office for a second. Player start. Let's move that up. And the second that is no longer hitting the ground, my capsule was embedded in the ground. And once I fix that, it should no longer be an issue. Let's go ahead and throw our frames into our office folder. And then let's go up top, and I'm going to add another window frame here. I'm going to rotate it down in the green axes, move it about here, and then try and scale it. Now, in reality, we wouldn't be scaling this, right? Because, well, we can't just scale things in reality, but you know, the dimension, the thickness of this and the thickness of that wouldn't be different on a window. It would be the same all the way around. Okay, there we have it. We have the start of our office building. I might want to make this feel a little bit more real. So under props is where I've been working, but under architecture, there's a whole bunch of other things. And I can start with a door, and I can start with a wall that has a window in it. And I'm going to use this pillar. I'm going to place that pillar here. Now, while I'm placing this, I am snapping to a grid, and maybe that grid is a grid that's not working for me right now. So I can change that to 5. And now that's nice and lined up. I could also copy that over to here and copy one over here. Getting a little bit of what's called Z fighting. So there's two surfaces that are trying to be at the exact same spot, and it's causing some issues. So I could try and move that in. That's only going to happen when there are surfaces that are at the exact same spot. It really doesn't make sense to not have this column line up with the other columns. So there we have it. Let me make sure that is, nope, that is better. Yep, that is more correct. And I should have scaled this before I started. There we go. Okay, that's a little tall. Why don't we do 1.2? That's looking good. And then now I know that it's 1.2. I can just type those in. Oh, that was the wrong axes. That one's 1. This one's 1.2. But while we're talking about axes, if I wanted to change the dimension of this, like that seems like maybe it's a little too beefy of a column, right? So if I did 0.8, maybe that is looking better. That seems like a little bit more realistic for those column sizes. have it right on that edge. So I'm close, but I'm not getting Z fighting. And then these pillars, I can hold Alt and I can put a pillar here. And maybe what I want to do is I want to put another set over here, but maybe I don't need this one. Maybe that space is being held up by something else. So maybe I want to put some beams in here. So I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to rotate it down. Now beams are usually deeper than they are wide. So I'm going to look here and I'm using the world coordinates, but if I go to the local coordinates, that'll tell me, oh look, the red is the one that is this direction. And the blue, I'm going to need to scale this a little bit so that it actually meets that end. Okay, so that's hitting. And I can, again, copy this over to the side. Copy it over to the other side. There we go. Those proportions seem pretty good. Fantastic. Did I? Oh, that's casting a pretty significant shadow. Let's talk about that. I can move this light and that shadow will change. It's all calculated on the fly for the most part. But in here, all of these pillars, beams and stuff, they should go in office. And then lighting, direct light. Okay, so direct light is the sun. If I hit E, let's go back to world. If I hit E, I can actually affect where the sun is shining from and to. Let's get a little bit more light inside. There we go. All right. This light is feeling a little weird because when I actually hit play, there's a light coming from nothingness. I don't know why there'd be a light there if I don't see a light. Looks like I missed the underside of that. Okay, so under props, another thing that we have is glass windows. I'm going to go ahead and drop a glass window in here. I'm going to rotate it this direction. And I'm just going to make a glass wall. I'm going to try and do it right on that seam. Let's change our snaps back to 10. See if I can get that to snap right on that seam. There we go. Slide this down just a little bit. Maybe we make this a little bit longer and taller. 1.5. There, it's a little too tall. It's okay if the glass goes into that beam. No one will notice that that's the case. And let's change this dimension to 1.5 scale. No, it's got to be the green axis. There you go. And let's make some copies of this. And that last one is just a little shy, so I'm just going to squeak that out. There we go. And what's really nice about this is those, when you look dead on it, you might not notice it's all different pieces. But when you look at it from an angle, you can see those seams. So this one right here, we're going to move it just one click over because we're going to animate this in our next tutorial. And I'm going to slide it over this way. But I want to be able to move back and forth before we have done that animation. So I'm going to move that out of the way. Also in here, we've got some other props that we can start setting up. And let's see, let's pull this up just a little bit. We've got a table. I can grab that chair and hold Alt and make a copy of the chair. There we go. I can put an object on that countertop. Oh, that's really big. This is the Unreal Material checking model. There we go. And I guess as I was saying before, this light really bugs me because there isn't any shape associated with it. You can see there are some lights in here, but if you go under blueprints, these lights are actually preset with a light that actually shines out of them. Let's put that high enough. Get that on the back wall. There we go. And let's also put the ceiling light in here. Try to get it centered over the table. All right. And now when I press play, there we go. Looking and feeling good. Now, if you're interested in understanding how quickly your computer is processing this, you should also be able to go over here to these 3 lines and you can say show FPS. I'll give you a running tally. And I'm getting some really good frame rates here. Well, considering there's not much here, I'd hope I'd be getting frame rates like this. Okay, that is our introduction to Unreal. Our next tutorial, which we will have on Monday, will be animating this door so that when you walk up to the door, it opens, and when you walk away from it, it goes away. And I can hold E and Q in here to move up and down. And if I wanted to, I could be using that left mouse button to move back and forth like I'm walking. That's much more realistic. All right. Great. Thank you so much for joining. See you soon.